They moved me into the basement of the house I built with my own 2 hands, right next to the furnace. My daughter just watched. They thought I was old, broken, and useless. They were about to learn that old builders know exactly how to tear things down. If you're listening to this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It helps to know I'm not completely alone. Because just 3 weeks ago, my life made sense. The taxi engine died. The silence that rushed in felt too loud. I stood on the driveway, suitcase heavy in my hand, staring at the house. My house. 40 years I spent laying the bricks, raising the beams. I'm Arthur. I'm a builder. This house wasn't just wood and mortar. It was my life with Elizabeth. It was our fortress. I had been gone for 3 weeks. Florida. My younger brother James had a heart attack. I went immediately. It was the longest I'd been away since Elizabeth passed 5 years ago. Florida was a blur of hospital corridors and the smell of antiseptic. James was stable, but I was drained. Hollowed out. I just wanted my own bed. The scent of sawdust from my workshop. The quiet routine of my life. I just wanted to come home. But as I looked at the house, something felt fundamentally wrong. A coldness that had nothing to do with the November air. My daughter Chloe had insisted I go. "Dad, James needs you," she had said, her voice tight. "Don't worry about anything here. Mark and I will take care of the house." Mark, my son-in-law. Sharp suits, sharper ambition. He worked in investments, a word so vague it usually meant trouble. They lived across town, always on the verge of a big breakthrough that never quite materialized. I loved Chloe, but Mark, he had a way of looking at things, at people, and calculating their value. I worried about his influence on her. I was about to find out just how deep that influence ran. The second week in Florida, Chloe called. Her voice was overly bright. Forced. "Dad, there's been a situation," she said. "Mark's parents, the Davises, they had a terrible flood in their condo. Water everywhere." "It's uninhabitable. That's awful," I said, genuinely concerned. "Are they okay? Where are they staying?" "Well, that's the thing," she rushed on. "They were so stressed. Hotels are all booked up. So, I told them they could stay here, at the house." "Of course," I agreed. "Family helps family. The guest room on the first floor should be comfortable." There was a pause, a hesitation that felt heavy. It hung in the air between us, thick and unsettling. "About that, Dad," Chloe said slowly. "The guest room is so small, and Miss Davis has a bad back. They needed a proper bed. They might be here for a while." My stomach tightened. I knew what was coming. So, we put them in the master suite. The master suite, upstairs. My bedroom, the room where Elizabeth and I had dreamed and planned. The room where she had taken her last breath. My room? The words felt lodged in my throat. "It's just temporary," Chloe insisted. "We had to make them comfortable. We moved your things out, so they could settle in." "It's no big deal, Dad. It's just a room." It wasn't just a room, it was my sanctuary. But I was thousands of miles away, exhausted. I didn't have the energy to fight. "Fine, Chloe. We'll talk when I get back." I hung up the phone. The motel room felt smaller, colder. I had a feeling I wasn't just losing a room. I was losing my daughter. Now, standing in the driveway, the dread was a physical weight. I looked at the living room window. The curtains were different. Heavy, ornate velvet instead of the light linen Elizabeth preferred. They hadn't just moved in. They were redecorating. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The smell hit me immediately. Not lemon polish and old books. It was a cloying mixture of expensive perfume and something savory like roasting meat. The air felt thick, occupied. My house hadn't smelled like my house anymore. I walked down the hallway, my footsteps heavy on the oak floors I laid myself. Laughter echoed from the dining room. A harsh, unfamiliar sound. I didn't stop. I headed straight for the stairs. I needed to see the damage for myself. I climbed the stairs, my hand gripping the banister I had carved with such care. I reached the landing and turned toward the master bedroom. The door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open and stopped breathing. It was unrecognizable. The soft blue walls Elizabeth loved were gone. Painted a sterile, cold gray. It looked like a bank vault, our sturdy oak bed frame. The one I built as a wedding gift, gone. In its place was a massive, modern monstrosity of dark wood and black leather. It dominated the room. My dresser, my nightstands, everything gone. The closet doors were open, revealing rows of expensive suits and dresses that weren't mine. On the new dresser sat a picture of two strangers, smiling brightly. They hadn't just moved my things. They had erased me. They had erased Elizabeth. I felt a wave of dizziness. My legs felt weak. I backed out of the room, my heart pounding with a sudden, sharp anger. This wasn't hospitality. This was an invasion. I turned and walked back downstairs, heading towards the voices in the dining room. They were about to realize the owner was home. Chloe, Mark, and the two strangers. The Davises, Richard and Eleanor, were sitting around the table. Wine glasses were full. The remnants of a large meal sat between them. "Dad!" Chloe jumped up. Her face went pale. She started twisting the necklace she always wore when she was nervous. "You're back. We didn't expect you until tomorrow." "I came home early," I said. My voice was flat. Mark stood up, wiping his mouth with one of Elizabeth's linen napkins. He adjusted his cuffs. A nervous tick disguised as arrogance. "Welcome back, Arthur. Good timing. We just finished." He always called me Arthur, never Dad. A small power play. Eleanor Davis looked me up and down. Her eyes were critical, cold. "So, you're Arthur. We are so grateful for your hospitality." Her tone suggested she was doing me a favor by being here. "It's a lovely home," Richard Davis added, leaning back in his chair. "A bit dated, perhaps, but lovely bones." Dated. The word stung like a wasp. "I see you've settled in," I said, gesturing vaguely upstairs. "My bedroom." Chloe rushed over, wringing her hands. "Dad," I explained. "They needed the space." "Richard's back." "I understand they needed space, Chloe," I interrupted, my voice dangerously quiet. "I don't understand why they needed my life." I looked directly at Mark. "Where are my things? Where is the furniture? Elizabeth's belongings?" Mark sighed, an impatient sound, like I was a child asking a stupid question. "Arthur, let's not be dramatic. We didn't throw anything away." "Then where is it?" "We moved it downstairs," Mark said smoothly. "It's all safe. We cleared out the clutter. Downstairs. The basement." My blood ran cold. Clutter. He called my life clutter. I didn't say another word. I couldn't. I walked past them, toward the basement door off the kitchen. I opened it and switched on the bare bulb. The stairs creaked as I descended into the cool, damp air. The basement was unfinished. Concrete floors, exposed beams. The smell of mildew and dust hit me hard. And there it was, my life, reduced to a pile of cardboard boxes and garbage bags shoved against the far wall. My oak dresser was there. The corner was chipped, gouged deep from the move. Careless. My clothes were crammed into black garbage bags, wrinkled and already smelling of the damp. They treated my memories like trash. But what broke me wasn't the furniture. It was the small box labeled Mom's Things. I opened it, Elizabeth's favorite sweater, her reading glasses, the small wooden bird I'd carved for our first anniversary, and the photographs. The pictures of us, of Chloe growing up, were tossed in loose. The glass on our wedding photo was cracked, right across Elizabeth's face. I picked up the cracked frame. My hands trembled. This wasn't just disrespect. This was cruelty, a calculated erasure. And then I saw it, in the far corner, near the humming furnace. A small cot, a thin, scratchy blanket thrown over it. This was where they expected me to sleep, like a servant in my own home. I climbed the stairs, the cracked photo clutched in my hand. They were still in the dining room, talking in hushed tones. They stopped when they saw me. The silence was heavy, waiting. "How could you?" I whispered. I held up the photo. The crack across Elizabeth's smile felt like a scar on my own heart. Chloe started to cry. "Dad, I didn't mean for it to get broken. It was an accident. We were in such a hurry." "An accident?" I said, the words tasting like ash. "You moved me into the basement, Chloe. On a cot, next to the furnace. Was that an accident, too?" "It's temporary," she pleaded, her eyes darting to Mark for support. just until their condo is fixed. We had to prioritize their comfort. Prioritize their comfort over my dignity. My voice finally rose, shaking with emotion, over the memory of your mother. Mark stepped forward. His face was defensive, arrogant. Look, Arthur, we apologize if your feelings are hurt, but you need to be reasonable. You were gone. We did what we had to do. The basement isn't that bad. It's a basement, I shouted. The sound echoed in the sudden silence. And this is my house. I built this house. We know that, Arthur, Eleanor Davis said soothingly, as if talking to a fussy child. And we appreciate your sacrifice. But family must support each other. Sacrifice. They called this sacrifice. I looked at them, the entitled strangers sitting at my table, the ambitious son-in-law, who saw my home as an opportunity, and my daughter, my Chloe, who had chosen their side. I felt a profound exhaustion wash over me. The jet lag, the stress about James, the betrayal. It was all too much. I was too tired to fight tonight. I'm going to bed, I said. My voice clipped. I turned and walked back down to the basement. I didn't look at Chloe. I couldn't. I lay down on the cot, pulling the scratchy blanket over me. The smell of mildew filled my lungs. The furnace kicked on with a roar. This was my home now, a dark, damp hole in the ground. I closed my eyes, but I didn't sleep. I just listened to the sounds of my life being lived upstairs. Without me, the next few weeks were a slow descent into hell. The basement was colder than I remembered. The dampness seeped into my bones. My joints ached. I developed a persistent cough that rattled in my chest. But the physical discomfort was nothing compared to the emotional isolation. I was a ghost in my own home, an unwelcome intruder. I could hear them upstairs. The sound traveled straight through the floorboards. They had dinner parties, laughter, music. They were living my life, while I huddled in the dark. My routine was shattered. I used to wake early, make coffee, and read the paper in the quiet solitude of the kitchen. Now, the kitchen was enemy territory. One morning, I went upstairs. It was early, around 6 a.m. I thought I could sneak in and out. I was wrong. Eleanor Davis was already there, sitting at the table in a silk robe, barking orders at Chloe, who was scrambling to make eggs. I moved toward the coffee maker. The silence in the room was sudden, tense. Chloe stopped scrambling the eggs. Eleanor slowly turned her head toward me. "Good morning," I said politely. Eleanor looked me up and down, as if I were a stain on the floor. "Oh, Arthur, you're up." Her tone was not welcoming. "Just getting some coffee." "Try to be quiet, won't you?" she said, her voice sharp as broken glass. "Richard and I had a late night. We need our sleep." She turned back to Chloe. "And Chloe, these eggs are runny. Do them again." Chloe looked at me. Her eyes were pleading, desperate. "Dad, please, just take your coffee downstairs." "It's easier." Easier for who? The humiliation stung, hot and sharp. I was being shushed like a child, banished from the kitchen I designed, the kitchen where Elizabeth and I used to dance while we cooked. I took my coffee and retreated to the basement. The silence down there felt different now. It felt like defeat. The Davises treated the house like a high-end hotel, and Chloe was the staff. They complained constantly. The water pressure wasn't strong enough. The towels weren't plush enough. Mark, meanwhile, was busy transforming my home into his personal headquarters. He took over my study, the room where I kept my blueprints and woodworking tools, my sanctuary. I walked by one afternoon. The door was open. My sturdy oak desk was gone, replaced by a massive glass and chrome monstrosity. It looked cold, fragile. He started having investor meetings in the living room. Loud, arrogant men in expensive suits filled the space. They smelled of expensive cologne and greed. They looked right through me. I needed air. I went for a walk around the neighborhood. That's when I saw Elena Petrov. She lived across the street for 30 years. A good woman, observant. She was tending her garden, but she hurried over when she saw me. "Arthur," she said, her voice low and concerned. "Are you all right? You look thin, tired." "I'm fine, Elena," I lied. "Arthur, I don't mean to pry." She hesitated. But we never see you anymore. And the other day, a man came to the door, very official looking. Mark met him outside. They were talking intensely. I stopped. What kind of official? I don't know, but Arthur, I saw the papers Mark was holding. She leaned closer, her eyes filled with worry. I recognized the heading from when my sister went into the nursing home. It looked like power of attorney paperwork, Arthur. Power of attorney. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. They weren't just trying to kick me out. They were trying to take control of my life. My finances. Everything. They wanted to make me a non-person. The threat suddenly felt much more real and much more dangerous. They were already laying the groundwork. Chloe started talking about my health. Constantly. Dad, you seem confused lately, she said one afternoon when I came upstairs. You forgot to turn off the basement light again. I wasn't confused, Chloe. I was coming right back down. Maybe you should see a doctor, she pressed. Mark recommended someone, a specialist in geriatric memory. I have a doctor, Chloe, Dr. Sharma. I know, but maybe a second opinion. Her eyes were wide, innocent, but I saw the calculation behind them, the power of attorney. They were building a case against me, gaslighting me. I went to see Dr. Sharma myself. I needed a checkup anyway. The cough was bothering me. Dr. Sharma was a kind woman, thorough. She listened to my chest. The cough is likely from the dampness and dust in the basement. Arthur, she said, frowning, you shouldn't be sleeping down there. It's not healthy. It's complicated, doctor, I said. She paused, looking at my chart. Then she looked me straight in the eye. Arthur, I received a call from your daughter, Chloe, yesterday. My blood ran cold. What did she want? She expressed serious concerns about your mental state, Dr. Sharma, said carefully. She mentioned significant memory loss, confusion, episodes of anger. She asked if I thought you were capable of managing your own affairs. The audacity, the betrayal, it stung worse than anything else. My own daughter was trying to have me declared incompetent. And what did you tell her? I asked, my voice tight. I told her you seemed perfectly lucid to me. Sharma said firmly, Arthur, I don't know what's going on at home, but be careful. If they are trying to establish incompetence, they will be persistent. They will look for any excuse. She had warned me. They weren't just trying to steal my house. They were trying to steal my mind. The expenses started to climb. The electric bill, the water bill, the grocery bills were astronomical. They were eating steak while I ate soup from a can, and Mark decided it was time for me to contribute. He cornered me near the laundry area, in the basement, one afternoon. He was holding a stack of bills. He stood too close, invading my space. A dominance play. Arthur, he began, his tone condescending. We need to discuss the household finances. I kept folding my meager laundry. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing my anger. What about them? Now that there are 5 of us, the utilities are naturally higher, he said, tapping the bills against his palm. We need to divide things fairly. Fairly. I stopped folding. I looked him straight in the eye. I own this house. You are living here rent-free. That's a simplistic view, Arthur, Mark said smoothly. He had a salesman's smile, slick and insincere. We are contributing in other ways. My mother is supervising the household management, and I am improving the property value with my modernization efforts. Modernization efforts, erasing every trace of Elizabeth in me, improving the property value for himself. I'm not paying the utilities for the people who banished me to the basement, Mark, I said simply. Mark's face hardened. The mask slipped. That's unreasonable. We are family. Are we? If you refuse to contribute, Mark continued, his voice dropping low, menacing, perhaps we need to reconsider this arrangement. We might have to force the issue of your competency. The threat hung in the air, thick and suffocating. He was weaponizing the power of attorney threat. He was blackmailing me. The disrespect escalated. It became blatant, cruel. One evening, I was looking for an old photo album. I couldn't find it in the disorganized boxes in the basement. I thought maybe it had been tossed in the trash by mistake during their clearing the clutter. I went outside to check the bins. It was dark, cold, I lifted the lid of the garbage bin. The smell of rotting food hit me, and there it was, Elizabeth's favorite vase. A beautiful, handcrafted piece we owed on our honeymoon in Mexico, cobalt blue with intricate white designs. It was shattered, broken into a dozen pieces. Thrown away like garbage. I carried the pieces inside. My hands were shaking with rage. The cold didn't touch me. I was burning from the inside out. Chloe was in the kitchen, polishing silverware for the Davises. They were having another dinner party. I walked up to her. I placed the broken pottery on the counter between us. The sound was loud in the quiet kitchen. Why was this in the trash? I demanded. My voice was low, dangerous. Chloe jumped, startled. She looked at the broken pieces, then at me. She kept polishing a spoon. Avoided my eyes. Oh, this was your mother's favorite vase. We bought it on our honeymoon. Mrs. Davis knocked it over, she whispered. It was an accident, Dad. An accident. And throwing it away? Was that an accident, too? Dad, it's just a vase, Chloe sighed, exasperated, as if I was the one being unreasonable. It was old junk anyway. Old junk. Mrs. Davis felt terrible, she continued, rushing her words. But honestly, it clashed with the new decor. My memories, my history, my love for Elizabeth. Dismissed as clutter that clashed with their decor. I felt a cold realization settle over me. This wasn't just about space. They were systematically erasing me from my own life. They started talking openly about renovations, as if the house was already theirs, as if I was already gone. I was sitting at the top of the basement stairs one night, trying to get some air. They were in the dining room. They didn't bother to lower their voices. This kitchen is terribly outdated, Eleanor Davis declared. We need granite countertops and an island, and we should tear down the wall between the living room and the study, Mark added. His voice was excited, eager. Create an open concept space. Much better for entertaining. It will increase the resale value significantly. They were planning to dismantle my house, the house I built with love and care, piece by piece, brick by brick. And they didn't even bother to hide it from me. The indignities piled up, small acts of cruelty, designed to break my spirit, to grind me down until there was nothing left. Chloe started restricting my access to the kitchen. She blocked the doorway one afternoon. I was trying to make a simple stew, something warm to fight the chill in my bones. Dad, what are you doing? She asked, her voice tight. I'm making dinner, Chloe. About that, she said, crossing her arms. The smell of your cooking bothers Mrs. Davis. She has a sensitive stomach. Bothers her? I asked, confused. It's just stew. The grease. The odors, she said, her eyes darting nervously toward the living room. Maybe you can just eat sandwiches? We bought a mini-fridge for the basement. You can keep your things down there. I was being denied the basic right to cook in my own home. I was being starved out, isolated, confined to the basement like a prisoner. I bought a lock for the basement door, a simple, sturdy deadbolt. I needed some privacy, some small space that was mine, a boundary they couldn't cross. I installed it myself. The familiar weight of the tools felt good in my hands. It felt like control. 2 days later, I came home from a walk. I needed air. I needed to escape the suffocating atmosphere of the house. When I got back, I found the basement door wide open. The lock was broken. The wood around the frame splintered, destroyed. Mark stood there in the hallway holding a hammer, a smug look on his face. He hadn't even bothered to hide the weapon. What did you do? I demanded. My blood boiling. This is a fire hazard, Arthur, Mark said calmly. He tossed the hammer onto the hall table. It landed with a loud clang. You can't lock internal doors like that. It's against code. I know the code, Mark. I built this house. And besides, he continued, ignoring me, we need access to the laundry area. My mother can't be expected to wait for you every time she needs to wash her delicates. A blatant violation of my privacy. A demonstration of control. A power play. They wanted me to know I had no sanctuary. No place to hide. They could take anything they wanted. They were pushing me. Testing my limits. trying to make my life so unbearable that I would leave voluntarily. They started leaving brochures for retirement communities on the kitchen counter. Golden Years Retirement Village, Sunset Meadows Assisted Living. They thought I was old and broken. They thought I would just fade away. They were wrong. They underestimated the foundation of a man who builds things to last. The truth came out on a Thursday night. The turning point. I couldn't sleep. The cot was uncomfortable. My cough was getting worse. I went upstairs to get a glass of water. It was late. The house was dark. As I neared the kitchen, I heard hushed voices. Mark and Chloe were in the study. The door was slightly ajar. A sliver of light spilled into the hallway. I stopped. I listened. I don't like this, Mark. Chloe was whispering fiercely. He looks terrible. He's losing weight. And Dr.
Sharma brushed me off. She doesn't believe me. We'll find another doctor, Mark replied.
His voice was dismissive, cold. He's stubborn, that old man. But he'll break eventually. He'll sign the power of attorney. He'll realize that a retirement home is much more comfortable than that damp basement. He wanted me to break. But what if he doesn't? What if he gets sick? Really sick? It's worth the risk, Chloe, Mark said, his voice low and persuasive. Think about the future. Our future. This house is a gold mine. We're sitting on $500,000 minimum. It's our ticket, baby. The life we deserve. The life they deserved, at the expense of mine. And what about the flood? Chloe asked, her voice trembling. We keep lying to him, Mark. Every day. What happens when he finds out the truth? I froze. The truth? What truth? He won't find out, Mark said confidently. My parents are sticking to the story. They know what's at stake. But their condo... There was no flood, Chloe, Mark said, his voice laced with impatience, as if she was stupid for worrying. No flood. I paid their landlord to terminate their lease early, Mark continued, his voice dropping lower. They sold most of their furniture. They aren't waiting for repairs. They are living here permanently. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. I stumbled back, hitting the wall. No flood. It was all a lie. A calculated, cruel conspiracy. We needed them here to help us push him out, Mark explained, his voice sickeningly calm. 4 against 1. The pressure is much more effective. He can't fight all of us. He'll give up soon. You'll see. My own daughter, my Chloe, had conspired against me. She knew they were lying. She knew they were trying to force me out, and she let it happen. I leaned against the wall, my legs trembling. I felt sick, nauseous. I carefully backed away from the study. I didn't get the water. I didn't need it anymore. I returned to the basement. The darkness felt different now. It wasn't just a place of exile. It was a place of realization. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the cot, staring at the cracked photo of Elizabeth. The pain was overwhelming, a crushing weight on my chest. But beneath the pain, a cold, hard resolve started to form. A spark in the darkness. They thought I was weak. They thought I was broken. They thought they could dismantle my life. They forgot one thing. I was a builder. I knew how to build things strong, and I knew how to dismantle things. Piece by piece, beam by beam, I was going to dismantle their plan. If this story is hitting close to home, please hit the like button and subscribe. It helps more than you know, because what I did next changed everything. The next morning the war began, but it was a quiet war, a cold war. First, I needed proof, concrete evidence of their lie. I called an old subcontractor I used to work with, Tony the Wrench Rossi, a plumber, rough around the edges but loyal and thorough. Tony, it's Arthur, I said, keeping my voice low. I was in the backyard, away from the house. Arthur.
Long time no hear, boss. How you doing?
His voice was loud, cheerful. I need a favor, Tony. Discreetly. I need you to check out a condo downtown. The Davises, Unit 4B. They claimed a massive flood about a month ago. Flood, huh? Insurance job? Tony asked. No insurance, I said. I just need to know if it happened. I need to know the condition of the plumbing. Tony agreed. He knew better than to ask too many questions. He called me back 3 hours later. Arthur, that place is dry as a bone, Tony said, confused. No water damage, no repairs, no sign of any plumbing issues. Hell, there's new tenants moving in tomorrow. The previous folks left end of contract. Clean break. Proof. Solid proof. My hands stopped shaking. The anger solidified into something colder, something focused. Next, I needed reinforcements. I called David, an old friend, a lawyer who had handled my will and the deed to the house. We met in the city, away from the prying eyes of the Davises. We sat in his office, leather chairs, mahogany desk, the smell of old paper and stability. I laid everything out for David. The basement, the cot, the broken vase, Dr. Sharma's warning about the power of attorney, the overheard conversation, and Tony's report. David listened quietly. His expression grew darker as I spoke. Arthur, this is elder abuse, he said finally. His voice was grim, emotional and psychological, and the attempt to establish incompetency. That's conspiracy to commit fraud. You need to protect yourself. Immediately. What can I do, David? It's my house. The deed is in my name. But it's my daughter. The words tasted bitter. Then you have the power, Arthur, David said firmly. They are tenants, even if they don't pay rent. Even Chloe. You can evict them, legally. Evict my own daughter. The thought was devastating, but I had no choice. She had already evicted me from her life. But there's something else, David, I said, leaning forward. Mark, his investments. The funding feels off. He's too desperate for this house. Too greedy. David nodded slowly. His eyes narrowed. I can look into his business dealings. Discreetly. Sometimes, Arthur, the best defense is a good offense. I went back home, armed with the knowledge that the power was still mine. The house was mine. My life was mine. But I waited. I watched. I let them think they were winning. Over the next few days, something shifted in the house. The atmosphere changed. The arrogance radiating from Mark seemed to dim. It was replaced by something else. Fear. His loud, boasting phone calls were replaced by hushed, frantic whispers. He started pacing the house late at night. I could hear his footsteps through the ceiling. Back and forth. Back and forth. His face was pale and sweaty. He stopped wearing his expensive suits. He looked disheveled, desperate. The tension in the house changed. It was no longer directed at me. It was between Mark, Chloe, and the Davises. The wolves who had been circling me were now turning on each other. I heard them fighting, shouting matches punctuated by Chloe's sobbing. The sounds echoed through the vents, down into the basement. How could you be so stupid, Mark? I had Eleanor Davis shriek one evening. Her voice was shrill, terrified. You told us it was a sure thing, a guaranteed return. You made us sell everything to invest in your ridiculous scheme. I didn't know the market would crash, Mark yelled back. His voice was defensive, weak. It wasn't my fault. It's just a temporary setback. I can fix this. You ruined us. Richard Davis roared. His voice boomed through the house. We have nothing left. Our retirement savings, our pensions, gone. If we lose this house, we are homeless. The facade of their success was crumbling. The expensive clothes, the fancy dinners. It was all a lie. A house of cards built on sand, and the foundation was collapsing. A few days later, David called me. Arthur, you need to sit down, he said. His voice was serious. I sat on the cot in the basement, my heart pounding. I looked into Mark's business, David said. It's bad, Arthur. Worse than we thought. What is it? It's a Ponzi scheme, David said. He's been using new investor money to pay off old investors. A classic fraud, and it just collapsed. The SEC is investigating. He's facing serious charges, jail time. The magnitude of the disaster was staggering. He wasn't just a bad investor, he was a criminal. And the Davises? I asked, already knowing the answer. They invested everything they had with him, David said. Their retirement savings. The equity from their condo sale. They didn't have a lease terminated, Arthur. They sold it. It's all gone. Wiped out. They hadn't just been greedy. They had been desperate. They needed my house because they had nothing left. They were trying to steal my security because they had destroyed their own. While David was investigating Mark's finances, he found something else. A name that kept popping up in Mark's emails? Sarah Jenkins? She's a young investor, David explained. She gave him her inheritance. A significant amount. She's realized something is wrong, and she's threatening to go to the police. I think you should talk to her, Arthur. Put a face to the damage. I met Sarah Jenkins at a diner the next day. She was young, no older than Chloe, terrified. Tears streamed down her face as she told me her story. He was so charming, she whispered, clutching a coffee mug with both hands. He promised me he would double it. It was the money my grandmother left me. For college, for a down payment on a house. Now it's gone, all gone. Her pain was real. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the betrayal of trust. Mark hadn't just stolen from his family. He had stolen from strangers, from innocent people. He destroyed lives. My resolve hardened. This wasn't just about my house anymore. It was about justice. The climax came on a Tuesday evening. I was in the basement, reading one of Elizabeth's old books, trying to find some peace in the chaos. I heard a commotion upstairs, shouting, crying, the sound of something breaking, glass shattering. I went upstairs. The scene that greeted me was chaos. The end of an empire built on lies. Chloe was sitting on the floor in the living room, sobbing hysterically. Her face was pale, her hair disheveled. A broken wine glass lay on the floor next to her. Mark was standing near the fireplace, his face a mask of utter defeat and despair. He looked broken, empty. The Davises were huddled together on the expensive new couch. They looked terrified, small, weak. What happened? I asked, my voice calm in the storm. Chloe looked up at me. Her eyes were wide with terror. It's over. It's all over. Sarah Jenkins went to the police. The investors know about the fraud. They are threatening us. They know where we live. Mark sank onto a chair, his head in his hands. I'm ruined, he muttered. I'm going to jail. I looked at them. The family that had tried to destroy me was now destroying itself. The greed, the entitlement, the arrogance. It had all turned to dust. I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. The anger drained away, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. It seems we have a problem, I said quietly. They all looked at me, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and a desperate, sickening hope. They thought I was going to save them. They thought I was still the weak old man from the basement. Dad, please, Chloe pleaded, scrambling to her feet and reaching out to me. Her voice was raw, broken. You have to help us. We need money. We need a place to hide. Mark suddenly looked energized, a flicker of desperate hope in his dead eyes. The hustle never stopped. Arthur, we need you to take out a loan against the house, just enough to pay off the angriest investors. Give us a head start. We can disappear. Start over. Please, Arthur. I'm begging you. They wanted me to risk my home, the home I built for Elizabeth, the home they tried to steal, to save them from the consequences of their own crimes. I looked around the living room, at the sterile gray walls, the modern, cold furniture, the remnants of their failed dreams. A slow smile spread across my face. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who finally understood the game and realized he held all the cards. No, I said, the smile still playing on my lips. They stared at me, confused. The word didn't register. What do you mean? No, Mark asked, his voice trembling. Arthur, you have to. They will find me. I looked them straight in the eye. My voice was steady, strong. I mean, no, I will not help you. I will not risk my home for you. I took a step forward. Pack your things. They didn't expect that. The silence that followed was absolute. Shock. Disbelief. What? Chloe whispered, her voice horrified. You heard me. All of you. Pack your things. I want you out of my house. Tonight. Arthur, you can't be serious. Eleanor Davis gasped, clutching her pearls. We have nowhere to go. We're broke. We have nothing. You should have thought of that before you tried to steal my home, I said coldly. Dad, Chloe cried, the tears turning from sorrow to panic. You can't do this to us. We're your family. Are we? I asked, my voice laced with the pain of the past few weeks. The isolation, the cruelty. Family doesn't banish their father to the basement. Family doesn't try to have their father declared incompetent. Chloe flinched. She knew I knew about Dr. Sharma. I turned to Mark. And family certainly doesn't commit fraud and expect their father-in-law to bail them out. I spoke to Sarah Jenkins. Mark, I know everything. Mark's face turned white. He knew I had him cornered. You have 2 hours to pack your belongings and leave, I said, my voice cold and final. If you are not gone by then, I will call the police, and I will tell them exactly where to find you. The threat hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. They knew I meant it. They saw the strength in my eyes. The builder was back. They started to move. Slowly, defeated, broken. I watched as they packed their cars. Their movements were jerky and desperate. They stuffed their expensive clothes into suitcases, the symbols of their fake success. The Dadalevs were crying, blaming Mark for their misfortune. You destroyed our lives. Eleanor hissed at her son. Mark was silent. His shame was a heavy cloak around his shoulders. He didn't look at me. He couldn't. Chloe was the last to leave. She stood in the doorway. Her face was puffy from crying. She looked young again, scared, lost. Dad, she whispered. Her voice was raw, broken. I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. I loved him. I believed him. I looked at her. I felt a profound sadness, a grief for the daughter I had lost. I loved her, or at least, I loved the memory of who she used to be. The little girl who used to help me in the workshop, but the woman standing before me was a stranger who had betrayed me in the deepest way possible. No, I said softly, but it did happen, Chloe, and I can't forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Where will we go? She asked. A final tear rolled down her cheek. I don't know, Chloe, I said. The words were heavy with finality. But you can't stay here. She nodded, defeated. She turned and walked away. I watched them drive off, the taillights disappearing into the night. The sound of the engine fading away. The silence that filled the house was beautiful. It was no longer the oppressive silence of occupation, but the peaceful quiet of a sanctuary restored. I locked the front door. The house was mine again. I spent the next few days cleaning, repairing, restoring. I started the long process of erasing their presence. I started in the master bedroom. I repainted the cold gray walls. I brought back the soft blue Elizabeth loved. The room felt warm again. Familiar. I brought my furniture back up from the basement. I repaired the chip dresser. I fixed the broken lock on the basement door. Not to lock anyone out, but to repair what was broken. It took weeks to erase the scent of the Davises, the stain of their presence, the memory of their cruelty. I went down to the basement one last time. I picked up the box with Elizabeth's things. I carried it upstairs, to my bedroom, where it belonged. I took the cracked wedding photo. I carefully removed the broken glass. I repaired the frame. I hung it back on the wall, above the dresser. Elizabeth smiled down at me. The house felt like home again. But the scars remained. The wounds were deep. I heard from David a few weeks later. Mark was arrested. He didn't get far. He was facing years in prison. Sarah Jenkins testified against him. The Davises moved in with a distant relative, strained and unwelcome, stripped of their pride, their entitlement. Chloe filed for divorce. She moved to another city, trying to rebuild her life from the ashes. I haven't spoken to her since that night. I don't know if I ever will. The betrayal cut too deep. I lost my daughter, and that grief will always be with me. I won the house, but I lost my family. The price of victory was solitude. One evening, months later, the house was quiet. I sat in my workshop. The scent of sawdust filled the air. It felt good, comforting. I was carving a small wooden bird, identical to the one I had made for Elizabeth on our first anniversary. I looked around the quiet house, the silence stretching out before me. I had my home back, my sanctuary. But I had never felt more alone. Sometimes building means creating something new, and sometimes it means tearing down what is broken to protect what truly matters. Respect is not inherited. It is earned, and home is not just a place. It is where you are valued, where you are safe. As I sat there, in the quiet strength of the house I built, I finally felt a measure of peace, the peace of a survivor, the solitude of a hard-earned victory. I was alone, but I was standing strong, on my own foundation. Thanks for listening. Please rate this story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot because your time matters.